Actually, I went ahead and recorded.
Okay, very good. Very good.
Now I'm going to make you host, my friend, if I can.
Click on an arrow and see who's on the next page.
All right.
We're good?
Yes, I believe so.
Welcome, everyone. It's wonderful to be together. Yes. This modern technology, and a lot of appreciation to Patty for orchestrating us being able to do this. I've never done a Zoom group meeting before, so this is a first for me. But it's great to be together. So a couple of things, and then I'll delve into the poems. And we'll let them take over with their own momentum. Few things, you know, with the coronavirus impact, it's bringing up a lot of stuff for everybody. And there are three basic components of it from my perspective. One is the physical aspect of it and the practical things of washing our hands and social distancing, staying at home, taking care of our immune system. That seems almost the easiest to me of the components of what we're dealing with. The second piece is dealing with our thoughts that are reacting from the conditioned mind to our emotions. When there's an upheaval and there's a great deal of change abruptly, like it's going on, I think it's perfectly natural for our human emotional part to be anxious. I mean, there's no need to deny that or to try and be aloof and separate from it. Consciousness includes everything. And so the way I want to work with it with myself is if anxiety comes up, I want to be aware of it and to use whatever tools I have to nurture it. The mind will not be able to take care of our emotions, particularly now. The mind's just not capable. So part of it is we're being pushed to move deeper into a connection with awareness and with our own inner intelligence. If I go to the store and the shelves are completely empty of toilet paper, well, there's that. And that's real. But if I turn it over to my mind will be saying within minutes, this is the apocalypse, and there'll be flesh-eating zombies on my door in the next few minutes. So we want to just watch the mind and slip back into awareness. And then that's the third component, and that's why the mystical poems to me are priceless. The third component is just anchoring and resting and returning to that inner sense of knowing and awareness that connects us with everything. It connects our emotion to our heart. It connects our fear to a sense of grounding in that with whatever happens, we're okay. So these poems, this is part of the anchoring. That's my hope as you hear them. The one suggestion I give folks whenever I do a recital is feel the poems. You'll learn things by just listening, but the real depth of the poems is what it brings up feeling-wise. And it's allowing that feeling, I like to compare it to the Sistine Chapel and the image that Michelangelo had of the divine figure touching the human figure. Well, with whatever you feel emotionally, whether it's sadness or joy, it doesn't matter. That feeling, if you're aware of it, that bridge is the integration that opens us to deeper understanding and deeper peace. So just feel the poems and let them come to you in whatever way they do. That's my suggestion. All right, so let's get into it. This first, I'm going to do two sections of poems that are subheaded titles that I just arbitrarily have assigned. And then we'll take a little break where you can get tea, use the bathroom or whatever, and then we'll come back for a final segment of poems for the afternoon. So this first segment of poems I call Contemplating the Divine. These are the mystics' perception and perspective on relating to the divine. This first one is by Rumi. I imagine most of you are familiar with Rumi, 13th century Sufi mystic. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full of talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. We're moving into that field right now. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, out beyond the mind, there is a field. I'll meet you there, friend. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and scared. Don't go to the study and start reading. Take down a musical instrument and begin playing. Let the beauty you love be what you do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and scared. Whenever we're in the mind in a sense of separation, it's inevitable that we're going to feel empty and scared. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and scared. But listen, friend, don't turn on the TV and start watching CNN. Open the window and listen to the birds. Let the beauty you love be what you do. There are hundreds and hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Beautiful, huh? That was Rumi again. And now one from Hafiz, beloved Hafiz. It's very appropriate. Fear is the cheapest room in the house. I would like to see you living in better conditions, for your mother and my mother were once friends. Friend, I know the one who is the innkeeper in this part of the universe. Get some rest tonight. Come back and hear my verse again tomorrow. We'll go visit the friend together. I can't make any promises right now, but this much I know in my heart. If you pray, if your prayer is sincere, somewhere in this world something good will happen. Let yourself feel more the playfulness and love in your own eyes, for that is our greatest witness to God. Yes, your soul and my soul once sat together in the beloved's womb playing footsie. Your heart and my heart are very, very old friends. I'll do it again, but let me tell you a little story. This reminds me of the verse that goes, I can't promise anything right now, but this much I know. This much I know. Hafiz knows. We too know if we just relax a little bit into our hearts. This much I know. If you pray and your prayer is sincere, coming from your heart, somewhere in this world, something good will happen. Isn't that a beautiful sentiment? I love the part about sincerity. There's a Jewish parable. I love this parable. European village in olden days. And it is the role of the rabbi in the village that when any natural calamity befalls the people in the town, that he is the intermediary between the people in the village and the divine, God. So his role is whenever something happens, a calamity like a famine or a flood or a disease, his job is to put on a special robe and take a holy book and go to a special part of the forest and read the sacred prayer. And so when he does that, because of his sincerity, the people are helped. So as time goes on, this role of the rabbi is passed on one generation to the next. But over time, as naturally things happen, the sacred robe for the ritual gets tattered and torn and eventually just falls apart. So the rabbi in this generation takes the sacred book, goes to the sacred place in the forest, and he reads the passage and he says, I do not have the sacred robe anymore, but the people really need your help. And he reads the sacred prayer. And because of his sincerity, the people are helped. Again, as time goes by, the holy book gets worn and faded and eventually just dissolves. So there's no longer the sacred prayer that the rabbi knows. So he goes to the forest and he finds the sacred place in the forest and he turns and he says, I no longer have the sacred robe and I do not know the sacred prayer, for the holy book is no longer with us. But dear one, the people need your help. And because of his sincerity, the people are helped. And finally, as time goes by, and the ritual is passed on from one generation to the next, the rabbi doesn't even know where the sacred place in the forest is. So he just wanders out into the forest and he says, I don't know what the spot is. This seems as good as any, and I don't know the sacred prayer, and it's long since been since we had the robe. But dear one, the people need your help. Please, please help us in this time of our distress. And because of his sincerity, the people are helped. I love that story. Fear is the cheapest room in the house. I would like you to be living in better conditions because your mother and my mother were once friends. I know the innkeeper in this part of the universe. Get some rest tonight, my friends, and come back, and we will go visit him together. I can't make any promises right now, but this much I know. If you pray, and your prayer is sincere, somewhere in this world, something good is bound to happen. Let your eyes reflect the playfulness and love that you wish to share, for that is your greatest witness to God and how best he connects with us. Your soul and my soul, dear ones, once sat in the beloved's womb together playing footsie. Yes, your heart and my heart are very, very, very old friends. So here's another Rumi. Part of the mystic's way is to surrender to the unknown. Now we're being forced to deal with a lot of unknown things. The mystic does it by choice. I like to say right now we're in a compulsory meditation camp. We're all in meditation camp. So the more we can relax into that and access and trust our own inner intelligence, then it will facilitate coming out of it and coming out the other end in a deeper, higher place within ourselves and collectively. So that's the neat part of it, if we can remember that. So Rumi is going to give us guidance, and he's going to share part of his passage of moving into that unknown, uncertain space. All day long I think about it, and then at night I say it. Where did I come from and what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere. I'm sure of that. And I intend to end up there. This drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I finally get back around to that place, I'll be completely sober. Meanwhile, I'm like a bird from another continent sitting in this aviary. The day is coming when I fly off. But who is it now in my ear that hears my voice? Who says words with my mouth? Who looks out with these eyes? What is the soul? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste just one sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I did not come here of my own accord, and I surely cannot leave that way. Whoever brought me here will have to take me home. This poetry, I never know what I'm going to say. I don't really plan it. And when I'm outside the saying of it, I get very quiet and rarely speak at all. So the passage that I like, my throat clear. The passage I like in that point, he's giving us a definition of awareness. Not so much in the words, he's giving us the formula to be in touch with awareness. So that passage. Who is it now in my ear that hears my voice? Just follow it. Follow it in your own body for a second. Who is it now in my ear that hears my voice? Who says words with my mouth? Who looks out with these eyes? What is the soul? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I did not come here of my own accord, and I surely cannot leave that way. Whoever, whatever force brought me here in this body, in these circumstances, that force, I trust, will take me home. This poetry, I never know what I'm going to say. I don't ever plan it. And when I'm outside of the actual movement of saying it, what I experience is that I get very quiet. And rarely speak at all. If you ever want to ground yourself, just ask, who is it now that is hearing this voice in my ear? Who is seeing these thoughts? Who is feeling these feelings? Who looks out with these eyes? Just follow that. Those are the breadcrumbs back to our home awareness. I love that guidance. So that's Rumi teaching us. Oh, this next one is Meister Eckhart. Meister Eckhart was a Catholic monk. He was a very unique Catholic monk. He lived in Germany in the 1200s. We're shifting now in this contemplation of the divine, these poems, they're shifting now to compassion. Awareness, compassion, compassion, awareness, awareness, compassion. So Meister Eckhart has this beautiful little poem. I'm just feeling to it. The communion he's having. All day long, a little burro labors with heavy loads on her back and with worries about things that only bother burros. And worries, as we well know, my friends, can be more exhausting than any physical labor. Once in a while, a kind monk comes to her stable and brings her a pear. But more than that physical act, the monk looks into the burro's eyes and touches her ears. And for a few seconds, just for a few seconds, the burro is free and even seems to laugh. Because you see, love does that. Love frees. Meister Eckhart. And worries, as we well know, can be much more exhausting than any physical labor. Have you experienced it? Once in a while, a kind monk, a conscious monk, comes to the stable, and he knows the burro is more than just an animal. He knows it's a living being. And he brings the burro a pear, the burro in captivity. But more than just bringing the burro a pear, he takes the time to look into the burro's eyes and to touch the burro. And for a few seconds of eternity, the burro is free and even seems to laugh. Because you know love does that. Love frees us all. Can you feel that? I hope you can feel it. There's a new movie out. It's not new. It's on DVD. Tom Hanks is playing Mr. Rogers. And I thought it was going to be a fluff piece. You know, Mr. Rogers went into TV and Mr. Rogers show. But it's a lot more than that. It's based on a true story, supposedly, of a writer who is this person who's in a lot of turmoil. He's got a lot of baggage, so to speak. And he's assigned to interview and write an article on Mr. Rogers. And it's basically about the story of his transformation. I won't go into it because if you get a chance, I would suggest reading it. Seeing it. It's a beautiful feeling movie. But there's early on, the writer calls Mr. Rogers and he's setting up a time to come interview him. And Mr. Rogers goes, "Lloyd," that's the writer's name, "do you know what the most important thing in the world is right now?" And the writer goes, "What? Well, no. What?" And Mr. Rogers goes, "Why, it's talking to you, Lloyd. That's the most important thing in the world to me right now." That presence is the same as touching the little burro. So, so let me see what we got next. Oh. Rumi again about the longing. There is some kiss we want with our whole lives. The touch of spirit on our bodies. Seawater begs the pearl to break open her shell. And the lily, how passionately she needs some wild darling. At night, I open the window and ask the moon to come and press her face against mine. Breathe into me. Close the language door and open the love window. You see, the moon won't use the door, my friends. Only the window. Only the window. Here's a poem by Khalil Gibran. It's from his masterpiece, The Prophet. And if you studied the law of attraction, the principles of that, some of that will be familiar. That was the way that's presented, the law of attraction in recent years. I'm sure it wasn't presented like that in Gibran's time. He lived in the early 1900s, but he knew it. He knew it from his own inner experience. And this poem encompasses that. It encompasses a lot more, the surrender, the opening. It's called Speak to Us of Prayer. Then a priestess said, speak to us of prayer. I love that it's a priestess that asked the question. Then a priestess said, speak to us of prayer. And he answered, saying, you pray in your distress and in your need. Would that you might pray also in the fullness of your joy and in your days of abundance. For what is prayer but the expansion of yourself into the ether? And if it is for your comfort to pour your darkness into space, it is also for your delight to pour forth the dawning of your heart. And if you cannot but weep when your soul summons you to prayer, she should spur you again and yet again, though weeping, until you shall come laughing. When you pray, you rise to meet in the air all those who are praying at this very hour, and whom, save in prayer, you may not meet. Therefore, let your visit to that temple invisible be for naught but ecstasy and sweet communion. For if you enter the temple for no other purpose than asking, you shall not receive. And if you enter the temple to humble yourself, you shall not be lifted. Or even if you should enter the temple to beg for the good of others, you shall not be heard. It is enough that you enter the temple invisible. I cannot teach you to pray in words. God listens not to your words, save when he himself utters them through your lips. And I cannot teach you the prayer of the seas and the forest and the mountains, but you who are born of the mountains and the forest and the seas can find their prayer in your own heart. And if you will just but listen in the stillness of the night, you can hear them saying in silence, O God, who art our winged self, it is thy will in us that willeth. It is thy desire in us that desireth. It is thy urge in us that would turn our nights, which are thine, into days which are thine also. We cannot ask thee for aught, for thou knowest our needs even before they are born in us. Thou art our need, and by giving us more of thyself, thou givest us all. All right. So there's this shift, slight shift in attention and intention of the poems. I call this segment of poems Faith in the Unseen. So the mystics are sharing that trust beyond the apparent circumstances, trust beyond the upheaval of change, and trusting the mystery as it unfolds. So this first one is from T.S. Eliot. And I love it because for me it captures the feeling of when we're shifting. When some old pattern is ending and the new pattern hasn't actually established yet. And that's some of what we're going through, I think, collectively, but it's also individually we do it all the time. So the feeling of that uncertainty is very pronounced. T.S. Eliot's going to give us the perspective of it, but also some suggestions how to abide in it without getting consumed by thoughts and regressing into old patterns. This is a fantastic poem. Just let it settle into you. I said to my soul, be still and wait without hope. For hope would be hope of the wrong thing. Wait without love, for love would be love of the wrong thing. There is yet faith, but the faith and the hope and the love are all in the waiting. Wait without thought, for you are not ready for thought. So the darkness shall be the light, and the stillness, the dancing. Whisper of running streams and wild lightning, the wild thyme unseen and the wild strawberry, the laughter of the garden, echoed ecstasy, not lost, but requiring, pointing to the agony of death and birth. You say I am repeating something I've said before. I shall say it again. Shall I say it again? In order to arrive there, to arrive where you are, to get from where you are not, you must go by a way wherein there is no ecstasy. In order to arrive at what you do not know, you must go by the way which is the way of ignorance. In order to possess what you do not yet possess, you must go by the way of dispossession. And in order to arrive at what you are not, you must go through the way in which you are not. And what you do not know is the only thing you know. And what you own, you do not own. And where you are at, you are not. In order to arrive at what you do not know, you must go by the way, which is the way of ignorance, the innocence and humility of not knowing. In order to arrive at what you do not know, we must go by the way of ignorance. In order to possess what we do not possess, we must go by the way of dispossession of the old. And in order to arrive at what we are not, we must go through the way in which we are not. And what we do not know is the only thing we know. And what we own, we do not own. And where we are at, we are not. It's a great poem. It's walking through the unknown. Speaking of compassion, I have a dear friend who used to love to write haikus. Avinash, some of you knew him, beautiful human being. And a haiku is a Japanese poem that has 3 lines, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables. So whatever you want to express has to conform to that form. So play with it sometimes. It's somewhat challenging to express what you want to express. But this whole thing about the not knowing, here was one of his little haikus. Not from all knowing does compassion come, but from knowing we can't know. Not from all knowing does compassion come, but from knowing we can't know. In order to arrive at where we are, we must go by the way, which is the way of ignorance. This is a little tricky because I can't, I can feel you, but not feel you like when we're in person. So I hope you're doing good. I hope your energy's good. If your energy's good, nod your head and let me know.
Yes, it's good. I just unmuted myself so that you could hear my voice, because I know
Yeah.
what it's like to be speaking without any voice coming back. It's beautiful. It's so moving, and it's so wonderful. There are many comments in the chat.
Okay, great.
How important it is, and how beautiful, and how glad people are that they're here. Okay.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
so glad we're together. I'm so glad for all of you. You're beautiful. You're absolutely beautiful.
Click on the arrow. Look at the next page. There's more people.
All right, I'll try that in a minute. All right. We've got a few more and then we'll take a little break. Let's just,
Somebody's writing something. What are they saying?
so this is a Zen parable. In Zen, if you ever visit a Zen monastery, have done retreats or whatever, the Zen atmosphere, for lack of a better word, is very crisp. Everything's very precise. And the purpose of it is to bring one into mindfulness and awareness with each and every action. So there are all kinds of rituals and rules and stuff to keep you right on track so that you don't go astray into thinking or things like that. So this poem will address that. It also addresses that everything is equal, like the poem we had with Meister Eckhart. All life forms, everything is the same energy, and that's the mystic's gift of their perception. So part of this poem is showing that nothing is more important than nothing else, and that the guidelines and rules, even if they're very spiritual, are not more important than the actual awareness and response from the heart to what's happening in the present. So the name of the poem is The Moth Who Rearranged the Order of the Universe. This is a great poem. High in the snow-covered mountains, there was a temple. Inside it, there was a beautifully curved 1-ton bronze gong. It was the duty of the senior student among the monks to chime the gong once an hour, every hour, day and night. It was said that if ever even a single note was missed, then all the worlds of the universe would entirely change. For this gong chiming regulated every world in the universe. One night, as everyone was sleeping, a strange silence sat the abbot of the monastery upright in his bed, as if his heart had missed a beat. Snow and ice was everywhere as he raced barefoot to where the gong was. There, he found the senior student with a lantern in one hand and a mallet in the other. The abbot's anger was fierce as he roared, "We have not missed a beat for 1,000 years. What is your excuse, you idiot?" The monk lifted his lantern slightly to reveal just beneath the upper lip of the gong, protected from the snow and wind, was a tiny moth sleeping. I did not want to disturb it, said the monk, as whole galaxies nervously shifted in their dark robes. The abbot bowed down and touched the feet of the monk. He turned over the mantle of authority of the monastery to him and returned to his room, where he was soon fast asleep. It was said that a whole new order of chiming began the moment the moth departed. Isn't that a great tale? I did not want to disturb it, said the monk. This little moth, protected from the snow and wind, beneath the sacred gong, the moth who rearranged the order of the universe. All right. Two more and then we'll take a break. Here's another Hafiz. If ever anyone knew that feeling of loving all equally, it was Hafiz. Now is the time to know that all that you do is sacred. Listen, now is the time to know that all that you do is sacred. Now is the time to understand that all your ideas of right and wrong were just a child's training wheels to be laid aside when you can finally live with veracity and love. Listen, Hafiz is nothing more than a divine envoy whom the beloved has written a holy message upon. Dear one, please tell me, why do you still throw sticks at your heart and at God? What is it in that sweet voice inside that incites you to fear? Now is the time for the whole world to know that every thought and every action is sacred. This is the time for you to deeply compute the impossibility that there is anything but grace. Now is the season to know that everything you do, my friend, is sacred. For you are sacred. The moth is sacred. Your heart is sacred. Now is the time to know that kindness and compassion for yourself is the sacred path. And that all that you do is sacred. This final one in this section is from a beloved teacher, my first spiritual teacher. Many of you knew him, Osho Rajneesh, an amazing, incredible human being. It's his favorite phrase for surrender, what I would call surrender, which is letting go of our minds in a sense of our separate identity and just opening to that compassionate heart. His favorite phrase was being in let go. He would always say, be in let go. And so this is a poem that he did, that he shared, about being in let go. When you are in let go, many things, millions of things start happening. They were already happening, but you were unaware. You could not be aware. You were occupied. You were engaged somewhere else. The birds go on singing. The trees go on flowering. The rivers go on flowing. The whole is continuously happening with infinite celebrations going on. If you love, you will feel a deep affinity with life. Trees will talk to you. Birds will start coming nearer to you. Animals will not be afraid of you. There is no need. Man creates fear because of the head. With the heart, you are once again whole with the universe. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through. Before we go to break, let's just do a little brief 2 or 3 minute meditation. You know what entrainment is? Entrainment is a scientific term for an energy phenomenon. If you take a whole bunch of clocks that are ticking at a different rhythm and you put them in the same room and you just wait, eventually the clocks entrain. And if you come back a little bit later, all the clocks are in unison, in sync. So I'm going to do the end of this poem again, but just feel your own heart. I like to put my hands there. And you maybe can feel your heart beating. If you can't, it's no problem. Just imagine your heart. And what we want to do, what our little experiment in meditation is feel your own heart and let go into your own heart. And as you just keep relaxing into that, into the feeling of your own heart, then you can expand that out a little bit to entrain with everyone else that's doing that right now. All these beautiful people who are feeling their hearts. So our one heart is joining and unifying with everyone else's heart in the invisible temple that we've created. So just feel that and let it go wherever you want to go. All our hearts beating as one, sending out a signal to the universe, to those in Italy, Australia, all around the United States, New York City, everywhere, just our hearts beating together beautifully. You're doing beautiful. If you love, if you fall into a space of love, you will feel a deep affinity with life. It is inevitable that you feel a harmony, an affinity, a love for life itself. Trees will talk to you. Birds will start coming nearer to you. Animals will no longer be afraid of you. There is no need. You see, man creates fear because of his head and the sense of separation. But with the heart, you are once again whole with the universe. With our hearts beating like this, we are whole with the universe. Let the way of the heart, let this way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through. Light upon light upon light, all hearts beating as one. Love upon love upon love, we all disappear into one. Let this way of the heart, let this way of the heart, let this way of your beautiful heart shine through. Okay, my gorgeous friends, we're going to take a brief break. Take comfort with yourself, food, tea, whatever, and we'll be back in 10 minutes maybe. And there's one more segment of poems. The poem's crescendo, so the last section, I hope you stick around for. All right, thank you so much for your presence. It's beautiful.
Kaveen, if you can just pause recording, if you're able to, that would be great. Were you able to do that?
Well, you said you were recording.
Well, because it's on my account, if you can, I made you host.
Okay.
So you can go to the very bottom, and there's a little red box. One side says pause, and one side says end, and you only want to do pause. Resume is perfect.
All right.
All right, I'm going to mute myself and put Kaveen on speaker view.
That was wonderful. That was the funnest part. So,
Oh, he is?
yes. I've got one more little section of points I want to share.
Master, before you do, Kaveen, can you mute them so that they're not?
Where's the Isa?
Right here.
There's Isa.
It says master.
That's, yeah.
The
Good morning.
beautiful people. Okay, I muted you. So before I get into the section of points, I want to tell a little story, a little light story. I heard this, there's a wonderful teacher named Tara Brock that many of you probably have heard of, a beautiful teacher. She shared this little anecdote in one of her talks. And I liked it, and it fits. Even though most everybody here, we could say we're, quote, spiritual people, but spiritual people can freak out too. And so we have to be accepting of that. So here's the story. There are these 3 monks, and their monastery is right down next to the ocean. And one day the 3 monks are out on a boat, maybe fishing, trying to get food for the rest of the monastery or something. But suddenly a big, huge storm blows up like a tsunami and blows their little boat 100 miles away. And they land on this deserted island. Boat is smashed to smithereens, but they get out all right. So they're monks. They've had their mindfulness training, and so they compose themselves, and you know, they make out for several weeks eating coconuts or whatever. And they're just trying to adjust. And as they're there on the island, they gravitate towards this one cave. There's a certain vibration to it. And they start to go into this cave to meditate every day. So the 3 of them are meditating. And in the cave is kind of like the energy grid for the whole island. And the spirit of the island sees and is impressed by the poise of these 3 monks. So she grants each of them a wish. So they're sitting in meditation, and she comes to the first one, and he comes out of meditation, and she says, you can have whatever wish you want. And he goes, gosh, I sure miss being back at the monastery. I loved it there. All my other monks, I want to go back. So whoosh, he's back at the monastery. So she gets the second one. She brings him out of meditation, tells him the same thing. And he goes, I miss being in the monastery too. I love the abbot and the atmosphere, the bells ringing and all our rituals. I long to go back. That's my wish. Whoosh, he's back at the monastery. So then the spirit wakes up the third monk. She says, you'll have one wish. And he looks around and he sees his 2 monks are gone. And he goes, oh my gosh, I want my 2 friend monks to come back. Sometimes things are out of our control. And sometimes we freak out. I like that story. So let's do the poems. So this first one is Kabir. Many of you probably are familiar with Kabir. I love his poetry. Kabir lived in the 1400s in India, and what was unique about Kabir was that basically it was determined he was illiterate. He was a member of the lower caste, so he didn't write his poems. They were translated by oral tradition until finally someone had the wherewithal to write them down. But he was a simple person, and what was different then is the cultural norm in places like India. When he awoken, he continued living as a householder. He had a wife, he had children, and he worked as a weaver. That was his trade. So he was basically an ordinary fellow who had had these amazing experiences and was living in this awake state. And so naturally people would gravitate to him for guidance. So that's Kabir. But Kabir is a straight shooter. In this poem, he's going to give us a grand understanding of the mysterious workings of the universe. And I think the reason I'm sharing it is, again, when things are in upheaval, it's sometimes nice to go to that bigger context to get some sense of stability and grounding. This is Kabir. Between the conscious and the unconscious, the mind has put up a swing. All earth creatures, even the supernovas, sway between these two trees, and it never winds down. Angels, animals, humans, insects by the million, also the wheeling sun and moon. Ages go by, and it goes on. Everything is swinging. Everything is swinging. Heaven, earth, water, fire. And the secret one, slowly growing a body inside. Kabir saw that for 15 seconds, and it made him a servant for life. Everything is swinging. Heaven, earth, water, fire, virus, health, chaos, stability. Everything is swinging. And the secret one slowly growing a body inside. Kabir saw that everything is swinging. He saw that for 15 seconds, and it made him a servant for life. Here's a poem by the Buddha. The Buddha urged his monks to practice like this each morning. I am of the nature to grow old. Instead of suppressing this, I invite it up and look directly at it. I am of the nature to grow old, and I accept this. I am of the nature to have ill health. When I grow old, I will know it. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. The Buddha urged his monks to remember those things each morning. This is one by the modern day mystic Adyashanti. Beautiful, beautiful human being. Save your mentally manufactured tales of enlightenment to come for someone else's ears. The price to enter this love is your hope for a better future. We are not a crowd of beggars here. You and I have walked down that long, twisted road all the way to the end. Here, we do not ask God for favors, but instead celebrate the light that is in each other's eyes. So if you are ready to stop denying yourself your own beauty, you have come to the right place. Wake up now and praise this day when you realize that God's eyes are the ones you are looking out of and into. Praise this day, and with each breath you take, be filled with the golden arc of love that announces the ending of all your arguments with God. Praise this day simply because it exists. And sit down now in the warm skin of your own lap. For you are home. You are home, and it's time to rest in the merciful light of your own being. He is saying confidently that we are our own teachers, our own inner guides. Confidently, he says that, encouraging us to trust that. Praise this day simply because it exists. And sit down now in the warm skin of your own lap. For you are home, and it is time to rest in the merciful light of your own being. So this next one is by Rilke, Rainer Maria Rilke. I throw this poem in there, one, because it's a beautiful poem and I love it. But in this poem, Rilke is endorsing the feminine way. He's empowering the feminine within each of us, whether you're in a male body or a female body. And that to me is spirituality. And that to me is the key, if we're looking at a bigger context, of where all of consciousness is moving in terms of the world, is opening to that. More women in the roles of governing. Go off on a tangent. But that it's an empowering for that part of us that is the link. The feminine is the link to the spiritual, to that compassion and awareness. See if you like it. It's also a poem about transformation. And then that girl the angels came to visit. And then that girl the angels came to visit. She woke also to fruit, given love shy in her so much blossom. The forest no one had explored, with paths leading everywhere. They left her alone to walk and to drift, and the spring carried her along. Her simple and unself-centered, merry life became marvelous and castle-like. Her life resembled trumpets on the feast days that reverberated far inside every house. And she, once so girlish and fragmented, was so plunged now inside her own womb, and so full inside, so full of that one thing that every creature seemed to throw light upon her. And she was a vine with slopes heavily bearing. Isn't that beautiful? She, once so girlish and fragmented, was so plunged now inside her own womb. The same thing Adyashanti was just talking about. Sit in the warmth of your own lap. She was plunged inside her own womb, and so full inside from that one thing, and so full enough for 1,000 others, that every creature seemed to be throwing light upon her. And she was a vine, growing, sharing, with slopes heavily bearing. This is fun. A beautiful soul named Benjamin Smythe. It's a young, bright soul, awake being. And he shared this. He used to do spontaneous talks. I don't know if he still does on the YouTube. But this was a spontaneous poem he gave. I've tweaked it a little bit. But I love the sentiment and the reminder. Benjamin used to go around all over the place, and he would just hold up a sign. He would sit somewhere, and the sign would say, "You are perfect." He came to Asheville. I met him on occasion. But a wonderful person. But this poem in itself is fantastic. Really let it in and see if you have any arguments with it or if you're still throwing sticks at your heart and God. That's part of the litmus test of this point. Perfection is the way. Perfection is the case. You are perfect. What happens, happens. What doesn't happen doesn't even come close to happening. Everything that has appeared to happen is over unless you continue to replay it in the private theater of your mind. And the future is nothing more than reconfigured memory pieces constructed into new images and then believed to be coming. And the present is just an idea, like now or this moment. It's a way that the conditioned mind is trying to capture something that is ungraspable and doesn't hold still. No past, no future, no present. Perfect. You are perfect. You cannot make a mistake. You cannot do something that is somehow outside the bounds of acceptance of the universe. Therefore, it is very prudent to be kind, to be loving, to be respectful, beginning with yourself. Perfection is the way. Perfection is the case. And the case of perfection looks exactly 100% like this. Like this. Like this. You are perfect. With all our flaws, we are still perfect. You are perfect. You cannot make a mistake. You cannot do something that is somehow outside the bounds of acceptance of the universe. How would that be possible? Therefore, it is very prudent to be kind, to be loving, to be respectful, beginning with yourself. Perfection is the way, perfection is the case. And the case of perfection looks exactly 100% like this. I know somebody's not on mute.
You check to make sure everybody's on mute. So I could know that they're speaking out loud, and that's not nice.
I think they're on mute. Here's another Rumi. I got 3 more for us, maybe 4. Here's another Rumi. The expansiveness and the interconnectedness. Things like this technology and modern day technology shows how we're all interconnected. That sense of oneness. Oneness isn't some ethereal space that you go to and leave. Oneness is the case. Perfection is the case. He could have said oneness is the case. So this poem by Rumi, we're seeing it with the virus, with the coronavirus, all over. We're all part of what's going on. We're all connected to nature. We're all connected to one another. Rumi saw that in 1200, and he shares it in this poem. And he also shares, he's always pointing, not pointing at something in particular, but again pointing at a feeling, a sensing of that unifying connection. Not Christian or Jew or Muslim, not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi or Zen, not any known religion or cultural system. I am not from the East or the West, not out of the ocean or up from the ground, not made of natural materials at all. I do not exist, am not an entity in this world or the next, did not descend from Adam and Eve or any origin story for that matter. My place is the placeless, a trace of the traceless, neither body nor soul. I belong to the beloved, have seen the two worlds as one, and that one call to and know. First, last, outer, inner. Only that breath, breathing human being. Only that breath, breathing human being. Only that breath. Only this breath, this perfect breath, breathing human being. Another little one by Osho. This is breathing human being. They're all saying the same thing. On a feeling level, they're all saying the same thing. A religious person lives day to day, moment to moment. Cleaning the floor, and there is worship. Preparing food, and there is worship. Taking a bath, and there is worship. Worship consists of small things. Worship is a quality. It has nothing to do with the act itself. Real life must be lived in an authentic, sincere way, with totality, with joy, with celebration. Worship is a quality. It has nothing to do with the act itself. Real life must be lived in an authentic, sincere way, with sincerity, with joy, with celebration. So do one more here. We'll end up with a Hafiz. Hafiz will empower us again. Remind us of our freedom to choose in each moment. And even when we forget, when we're aware we're forgetting, we have the choice to judge ourselves for forgetting or to get back into the current of the moment and have compassion for ourselves and come back to respond to what's happening now. To me, that's the art. So here's Hafiz. No one can keep us from carrying God wherever we go. Listen, no one can keep us from carrying God wherever we go. No one can rob his name from our hearts as we try to relinquish our fears and at last stand victorious. We do not have to leave God alone in the temple or mosque or church at night. We do not have to be jealous of tales of saints or glorious mosques, those outrageous souls who can make amazing, fantastic love with the friend. We do not have to be envious of our spirit's ability to somehow, sometime touch God in a dream at night. No, these yearning eyes, these warm needing bodies can be drenched right now in contentment and light. Friend, no one anywhere or no condition can keep us from carrying God wherever we go. No one can rob his precious name from the rhythm of our heart, steps, and breath. No one can keep us from carrying God. For me, this has been amazing to be together like this. You are all so beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you for taking the time and getting on your computers and being together and creating this container of all this compassion. Keep the vibe going. Wash your hands, open your heart, and shine your light, which is so bright. Thank you so much.
You want to join the sound time?
Kaveen, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Kaveen. Lovely to see you again.
Oh, it's beautiful to see you.
Thanks so much, Kaveen. It was just an incredible joy to be together with everyone today.
Oh,
Love you all.
Yes,
Mwah.
thank you.
Stay healthy. Well,
I don't even know how to sign out of this. This red, I can't
Yeah.
read it. What's it say?
Leaving it.
Beautiful meeting and just incredible to be with all of these people, Kaveen.
yes.
If you're aware, there were about
Hi,
47
Terry.
today.
Hi, Patty.
Bye,
It's
sweetie.
been a beautiful
Hey, Amana.
experience.
Thank you,
Look
Kaveen.
forward to sharing it
Amana.
with some of my deepest
Yes.
friends.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Love you.
Thank you. I
Amana.
loved it. Thank you so much. Hi, Nirada. Hi,
Be
Nirada.
well, Anna.
Yay! Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me just
Thank
say,
you so much. It was beautiful.
oh, wonderful.
It always makes me feel so good.
Pause the recording. You can pause the recording.
Okay, let me pause the recording. But
Narado.